Hello, YouTube. How are we doing? We're going to continue our coverage of the OpenAI aftermath and also talk a little bit about where the AI field is going after this. So, as opposed to bringing on, a commentator on this, I thought it might be worthwhile to actually speak with some people in the field who can talk a little bit about some of the things that we're hearing in the headlines and also give their thoughts about where this field is going to go next. We're doing it with Openstream, and we'll tell you a little bit more about what Openstream is as we go. But we have folks from the very top here. The CEO, Raj Tumuluri, is here. Welcome, Raj.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for being here. And we also have Magnus Revang, who is the Chief Product Officer at Openstream and a former Gartner analyst. Welcome, Magnus.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
All right, folks, as we go, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will definitely get to them. I just kind of want to start with Q-Star, right, which is something that OpenAI has apparently come through. It's this big breakthrough that they're talking about. You guys are working on reasoning, and that is what Q-Star is also apparently supposed to be an advance in. Just from the very high level, what is this advance that OpenAI is apparently touting behind the scenes, and is it actually a step forward in the development of artificial intelligence?
Well, without actually having the facts on hand, I can speculate based on the news that I have read, and of course our own knowledge of where the field is advancing. I'm afraid we're not in for a lot of celebration as far as the reasoning and other things go. It is extremely unlikely that the AGI system can actually have the planning and reasoning based on where things were. Just earlier this year, there was a report by Professor Rob at Arizona State University that was funded by JP Morgan that actually found out, including GPT-4, they all performed very poorly, almost like 2% score on a planning and reasoning capabilities of the generative AI systems that they have. Between 2% to whatever breakthrough the people are talking about now, we really doubt whether that is really true.
Okay, but you're talking about a previous model, and this is a new thing. So what makes you doubt that the new thing is?
The fundamental approach itself, because planning and reasoning capabilities require a lot of active domain knowledge that is contained, and you can't really do that across all kinds of domains, no matter how much of hardware and systems that you throw at it. Which is one of the reasons why, not to speak about ourselves, but much of our industry is focused on the neurosymbolic approach, which is the symbolic approach is pretty good at reasoning and planning capabilities, and the neural systems are pretty good at scaling and doing that in an unsupervised way. So unless you have a mixture of neurosymbolic approach, you are very unlikely to have a breakthrough in terms of providing reasoning. Beyond the epistemic reasoning, I'm talking about deontic reasoning across. You can talk to a few documents here and there, but nothing beyond that when it comes to planning and reasoning. And explainability comes from as an offshoot of that.
So I can add something, and that is that Q-Star is supposed to have, according to rumors, this is unsubstantiated facts, supposed to have or be based on reinforcement learning. To do reinforcement learning in the way that people have been hyping this Q-Star thing is that you would need to have something called a universal feedback loop, right? Because basically, you evaluate with reinforcement learning, you evaluate how well the answer was that the model was giving, right? So that it can self-improve. But to do that in the universal fashion is far off of the capabilities that we're capable of. We can do it in localized systems like chess, computer games, stuff like that. But bringing that into the real world is not something I see being done in a sort of a revelation with a single model. You would see multiple models working toward that ability of universal feedback loop. You wouldn't suddenly sort of somebody wakes up overnight and releases it.
What do you mean by universal feedback loop?
A universal function that can evaluate the quality of the output. In reinforcement learning, you need to evaluate the quality of the output in order to improve the model, and to do that in a universal fashion, like we evaluate our own outputs as humans, right? Was that good? Was it bad? To do that in universal fashion is something, in academia and in papers, very few have even tried to address that problem, and there's just simply a lack of papers leading up to that breakthrough.
Right. And so let me
me-
just make
yeah.
sure that I get that right. So that's instead of trying to do one specific task, right? Basically being able to universally do universal reinforcement learning means you have a generalized system and it just gets better as it goes.
Yeah.
Is that and that's kind of what this Q-star thing was supposed to be?
Well, it's some of the
talking about-
rumors go in that direction, right?
But
Nobody
they're talking
knows.
about it as like a math. So how does that relate to the math? Being able to do math. That's what like the Reuters and the information we're harping on.
Yeah. So if you look at the generative AI models today, they're really poor at math, right? Because what they're doing is essentially next word prediction. So they're predicting the next word in the sequence, and they use a lot of computing power, and they're really good at doing it. But it means it has some trouble with numbers and understanding math. A planning and reasoning system can turn math problems into symbols and actually do logical deduction and logical reasoning on top of math, and then turn that into an output again. And that's not that unusual to do. So if it does that in sort of like speculated in the same kind of architecture, vector-based representations like they have on their other models, it's just a linear thing from a
even
neural
not from a
theorem
linear,
solver.
even to add to what Magnus is saying, since you asked about math, even simple transposition of the things like A plus B is not same as B plus A. You get different answers with generative AI, as you know. So it's not so to really seek a reasoning system across different domains on the fly is really very hard. I mean, it's probably doable in my lifetime, but not anytime soon. I mean, at least that's having spent my 25 plus years in this field, at least reading through the papers. And our chief scientist, Dr. Phil Cohen, has spent his lifetime on planning and reasoning systems. And given where we are from our vantage point, we don't believe such a breakthrough across domains is possible. It is possible that you can take a narrow domain and then achieve something that most of the other neurosymbolic systems are able to achieve, and that is probably what they are alluding to. Again, I don't want to be speculating, but I would love to see if that is indeed the case.
Okay, interesting. So where do we head from here now? What do you think are the areas to watch in the AI field? After we've seen OpenAI go through this convulsion, and now we have this development that you're both dubious about.
Yeah. So there is a backdrop to this whole thing, which is kind of alluding to the fact that somebody is capable of thinking and reasoning. And those of us, including you, who are in this field, know that the doomerism and existential crisis are all really exaggerated, to say the least. None of us are really genuinely concerned about it, although we are concerned about the employment of techniques that are unethical and that do not have checks and balances. But that said, the AI systems are not going to take over anything anytime soon. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm discounting something that I don't know. if it is serious. But everybody is including from Meta to many of the other companies, they are focused on bringing that planning and reasoning capabilities, because real life conversations are collaborative. We understand each other. For example, I'm watching you. I'm seeing whether or not I have your gauge attention. I know that you're paying attention to what I'm saying, and you also read my facial expressions. And a lot of communication happens through the nonverbal behavior as well. So sometimes even our inferences are more from the intonation and the facial expression than the actual words spoken, because much of the meaning is conveyed through that. So we're all working towards that, which will lead to better engagement beyond just question answering, in terms of having conversations with systems, providing helpful assistance to our end customers, in an empathetic way. I think that's where the AI field is headed. From what we are seeing, and almost all the companies are, at least the advanced ones, are focused on bringing that. At the same time,
Wait,
having some kind of
before you go on,
Sorry?
how is a computer going to be able to take in information that's nonverbal? I'm going to have a camera on my face as I speak to ChatGPT.
As you are speaking, yes, we're all having Zoom calls. We're talking to the system. So instead of you're typing something on the chatbot, you're able to take the phone and talk to a system, so that can actually analyze your intonation. That is better than just typing. And then similarly, if you have a video call with the system, customer support can be video based, and as it is right now in most of the healthcare related applications, where patients actually do call in. There are things that you can actually analyze and assist the customers by observing their facial expressions, instead of asking them what their pain level is on a scale of 1 to 10. You actually can deduce that from the expressions that you are seeing, what their pain level could be. And there are many other such behavioral markers, biomarkers that are visible to the system, and AI is advanced enough today on any video call to actually do that analysis and assess whether you are suffering from anxiety or depression or things like that. So those are pretty much possible. And the same thing could be used in any social conversation too. So if somebody is having some kind of inhibition about saying something, you can actually make them feel at ease by adopting appropriate verbiage and intonation.
Interesting. Magnus, you seems like you're ready to say something.
Yeah, I'm agreeing, but it is the more data sources you have available, then you communicate. The more modalities you have available, the better you can respond using whatever modalities are available for you to respond in. So to limit yourself into text only, for example, means that you can be really good at text. But what happens if you have other things available? Because our natural way of communicating is to use gestures, and we use other things. And when we use it, we expect it to be understood. So if I do things like this and talk with a certain tone, I would expect, for example, if I do a voice-based interface, I would expect it to be able to detect irony. Or things like that, because I'm using my voice and I'm expressing irony with my voice. But if all the system does is turning it into text, where it's really hard to see irony, it will most likely not detect it and answer in a way that it becomes readily apparent that the machine was not understanding what was being said.
Yeah. So where does that leave OpenAI? I mean, is this something that they're working on? I mean,
it's natural to assume that they are, right? So it is natural to assume that they are. They have all the money and resources at their disposal, and obviously they have a DALL-E and other models as well. So it's only time that people can combine. But right now, the way these things are happening are in sequential fashion. Like, you have one that is doing image generations and avatar generations, and another one that is doing the text analysis. And it's but whereas in real life communication, conveying of an intent happens through combination of all these modalities. For example, I would say, hey, take that pencil out of your mouth. So, so to Magnus, because I'm watching what he's doing, And sorry, Magnus, I didn't mean to say that.
It was all
So
planned, right?
basically, I'm referring to something that is so contextual and esoteric as is happening while I'm talking. So it's not based on your historic knowledge of something. You have to be observant. And so whatever I'm saying is finding it to take that out of your mouth. What is that? That is something that I'm seeing, I'm showing, and I'm gesturing at. So the referential resolution happens through combination of these modalities. And that is what we spend our time and life on. And there are companies that are focused on that. And it is natural to assume that OpenAI included is working on that same thing too. Because that's the ultimate holy grail for this field, actually, to be able to replicate human behavior completely.
I want to add something to that. And that is when you look at individual models capable of doing amazing stuff. Like you see, look at an individual generative AI model, you look at, DALI or generative sort of image-based model. You have to remember that kind of, if you look at a human mind, which is what OpenAI say they're going to do, like artificial general intelligence. If you look at a human mind, our human mind employs many, many different cognitive strategies to solve problems. And one of the things we do is that we use our executive function to regulate what kind of focus do we have on the problem, what part of the brain are we engaging to solve that problem, and combine different solutions together to what's ultimately the right solution. And you can have these amazing models, but I think we'll all find out that maybe the big problem is to actually combine them together and select the appropriate way to attack a problem using different kinds of models. So that replication of the executive function, that can have a toolbox of cognitive strategies to solve stuff and put together the answers afterwards. That is likely the biggest problem in AI. And I think looking at the capabilities of individual models, like the LLMs and stuff like that, and seeing they're super impressive, they're going to surpass human ability on all cognitive strategies because it surpassed human capability on one cognitive strategy. It's kind of somewhat underestimating the complexity of the human brain. So yeah, I just wanted to put that in there.
So it sounds like you're both kind of skeptical, like we're going to approach anything close to human level intelligence anytime in the near future.
Well,
we
on
can have
certain functions,
human.
yes. Yeah, sorry, Magnus. Yes, certain functions.
We can have over human level performance on tasks without having superhuman intelligence, right? Because humans are extremely versatile, especially in groups. You can't, pull up GPT-4 and ask, can you give me the unified theory of physics, right? And we're very, very far from when you're able to do that, because it's reiterating things we already know, which is amazing. But still, it doesn't generate new knowledge in the way a group of dedicated humans can.
That's the most important thing, because we draw inferences, that are probably something that is congenital, pre-wired to draw those inferences. There are many researchers that you probably have seen this, but a kid just who is not trained on anything, and if you're struggling to put some books into a shelf and the shelf is closed, this is done by one of the leading professors. This video is shown there, and the kid kind of watches it a couple of times and intuitively goes and opens the shelf door. So, which is something it has never seen before. And such a thing that you've never seen before is not something that the AI models of today are even capable of, right? So therefore, the skepticism is stemming from that, because it's we know, at least some of us know how long it takes to even get there, because the human mind has this unique ability to focus on something at microscopic level and macroscopic level at the same time. So as you choose, I can see the screen right now as set of individual pixels if I want to, or I can see the whole thing as a face or with the background. And I can choose to, like to Magnus' point, ignore all the books that the day one. Of course, I'm not ignoring your book, but the day one and other things that are there on the backdrop, I can ignore and just focus only on you. So this is something that we develop as a strategy during the conversation as we go about doing things, and we know which ones are to be ignored intuitively, and that is really very hard to achieve. It's achievable probably in my lifetime, yes, but not anytime soon.
Okay, you guys want to take a question or two from YouTube?
Sure.
Okay, we got one from Barry O'Gorman. Who is working to bring these models together? Who is motivated to do this? What standards exist to lead us towards this happening?
Well, excellent question. There are many people.
Thank
In
you,
fact,
Barry.
people don't realize that there are many standards, including the one I co-wrote at W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, called Multimodal Interaction. So, which is not generally talking about generative AI or some AIs of type, if you will, but it's like speech recognition and various other gesture recognition, ink modality, nonverbal behavior generation, and many other things. How to piece them together. There is some kind of oftentimes we have standards that come only after the field has advanced sufficiently.
Yeah.
This is where the standards kind of came ahead of the field advancements itself. So, but yeah, many companies are working on. You can Google multimodal AI, and you'll find a lot of companies, including ours.
Speaking of Googling multimodal AI, what's going on with Gemini? You guys have any idea when Google's going to release that model?
No idea. No idea. But
what could possibly be the holdup?
Well, you have to say that the Google is more risk averse than OpenAI, which is a startup, right? They have amazing AI researchers at Google, and probably the most academic papers of any source in the world, right? So it doesn't come down to from there, for looking at them, it doesn't come down to being unable to do the research and create the models and stuff like that. It is their how much risk they want to take in making those things into products for general people, and they have an established market where they are dominant. So naturally, they are looking at not disrupting that with when they release things. So you have to see it through that lens, right?
It's funny because someone talked about, I forgot who it was, but how you had OpenAI, who's a company that would effectively take the risks that Google wouldn't, building on Google technology, fire its CEO because it wasn't safe enough. Like this whole, and then bring him back. Like it's obviously clear now in the aftermath kind of where that company is focused. Does that sound right to you guys?
I think it shows that the valuation of the company is really important for the employees of that company. So
do you think that I mean, obviously, yeah, they didn't want to lose their options. Do you think that this was like amazing marketing for them? What happened? It seems like it was the best possible marketing. Like people who never knew who OpenAI was.
Are you sure about that, though? Are you sure about that?
I'm asking the question. Yeah, you tell me.
From a marketing perspective, perhaps, but would the ones that want to buy into this valuation of them, would they think twice now where they wouldn't think twice before?
Well, what do you guys think is happening with that tender offer?
Our CMO will cringe at the possibility of somebody adopting this kind of strategy for gaining popularity. But anyway, so leave it at that.
But I think it's.
I'm arguing back. Let me argue back for a second.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
Now the world knows Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, Mira Murati, every Ilya Sutskever. Nobody knew who these people were before last week. Now they're spending the entire weekend freaking out about whether Q-Star is going to kill the world, whereas before they would completely ignore this. This not been incredible for awareness for them?
There is modicum of truth in what you're saying. It is very much possible, like with anything. We don't know for certain. but it is too risky for a company to adopt something like that as a
No,
strategy.
I'm not saying they did it
Yeah,
intentionally.
no,
It's
no,
not
I'm just
conspiracy.
saying,
After the fact, it worked out.
yeah,
okay.
after the fact, yes, after the fact, it may have worked in their favor, but then also please understand, you have ruffled the feathers. You have shaken the confidence of many companies. I mean, not talking about big companies that are banking on this, but there are many product companies whose products are solely built on this kind of technology, and they have second thoughts about their own existence and survival, and they want to now have some kind of backup plans, and that's probably the fallout of this.
Are you guys building on OpenAI tech yourselves, or are you completely proprietary?
No, we
We
are
are agnostic.
Sorry, go ahead.
We're agnostic when it comes to using large language models.
We do have our own. We do have our own, but we basically let the use case define what kind of model is more appropriate. So the platform itself is capable of orchestrating with many types of models.
How have you felt about your work with OpenAI now? Is anything going to change, or?
I think it's the customers is
How
more
are
aware
your
of.
customers reacting? Yeah.
They're more aware of there being alternatives, right? And we find that often, you can take an open source model and you can pre-train it a little bit additionally, and you can fine tune it and get the same performance for specific use cases that you're employing it for than you can get from GPT-4, right? And that's basically when you work with enterprises that wants, they want transparency, they want to reduce hallucinations, they want to monitor the use. They have lots of needs that are, not out of the box. So our job is often to take the broadness of these providers that are able to do anything, and that's what they're targeting, right? We want to do anything. And we're focusing that into the specific tasks that a particular enterprise needs.
Basically, what we found is that a portfolio of smaller models trained on enterprise data actually works better from a performance standpoint and cost standpoint and every other standpoint than any of the ubiquitous large model that you can deliver to an enterprise. So, if you look just based on that alone, most enterprises were on that journey even without this crisis that you're referring to. And now they are patting themselves on the back for having had that kind of a strategy.
Yeah. This whole idea of the models commoditizing, the cost coming down, and then the building of open source has sort of been central to my theories about what's going to happen. Does that sound right to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We are with you on that.
So you guys must be loving Meta these days.
Well, I think their AI strategy is really good and is beneficial for the overall AI community, what they're doing at Meta. I do like that. I also do like
but
that.
I do have to
models.
say, I do have to say that, a shout out to Ian LeCun for his unrelenting focus on bringing planning capabilities or, not using choicest words to describe the lack thereof of the current models.
That's right. Yeah, Jan and I have been talking about that for like 7 years at this point.
We have been focused on that. We have been very heavily focused on that, and that's something that we stand, far ahead of most of the people that you're probably seeing in the marketplace.
I like to ask everybody that I speak with about this thing. What do you think is going on with this, accelerationist and effective altruist battle?
Oh, I will answer that.
Okay.
So
first, you got to state which one you are, Magnus.
I'm neither.
Okay.
I'm neither. I think that it is worrying the influence, basically, what philosophical belief systems are getting into the boardrooms of AI companies, because it's nothing wrong with being an efficient altruist or being an accelerationalist, but it is philosophical beliefs and philosophical, background to what you're standing for, and that should be open, right? And the consequence of that should be open. That I believe that, like efficient altruism. Now I would say that it's the long
Effective,
termism.
not efficient.
Yeah, effective. But it's the long termism portion of it that is a challenge in AI.
Right.
The belief
So
that
explain that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the belief is really out of Oxford and Stanford philosophy departments, and it is the belief that future humans that are not born yet have the same moral value as people living today, and that brings you into some thinking, which means that if there is an existential risk, and the chance of that, even if it's really, really small, if we can do anything to avoid it, we should, because there's an infinite number of unborn people in the future. So if there is a chance of that not happening, that means that you should not deal with or avoid existential risk, which means that even if you go into the center of effective altruism and stuff like that, you will actually see that they believe the chance of existential risk for AI to be very, very low. But because of the long-termism view, they still act on it today, which is, I feel that there's nothing wrong in believing that, like there's nothing wrong in believing lots of things, but you have to be open about it.
Yeah.
You have to state that this is why I'm doing it, not that, I believe the world's going under. No, you believe there's 0.1%
Exactly
chance of it.
That's a pretty clear explanation. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. As we come to a close, if anybody has any questions on YouTube, just drop them in. I'm going to ask a couple more and then we're going to wrap. But what else, like looking forward, looking ahead, obviously this OpenAI story kind of caught everybody by surprise. What are going to be the next things that you think will be important to focus on? Like if you were in my position, like what would you be exploring?
I can go, Raj.
Go ahead.
I would focus on neurosymbolic AI, and I'll explain why as well. So I did explain about the executive function and different types of models working together. And really, generative AI, when it came out, it kind of supercharged a lot of things in AI. And one thing it did was make every old AI approach that hit some snag in terms of too much work, too much this, too much that, suddenly became relevant again, because you could use large language models in tandem with these other ways of doing AI to eliminate those bottlenecks. So when we talk about neurosymbolic, it means that you use large language models, multi-modal models, generative AI models, to understand a chaotic world and turn that into symbols that you then reason over and plan over, and then you turn it back into the chaotic world using these generative AI tools again. So you're basically taking different approaches to AI and combining it in a way that keeps the strength of each of these technologies and eliminate the weaknesses. And that is really why I think neurosymbolic is going to be the next big thing. People are working on neurosymbolic for a long time, right? But it's really with large language models and generative AI that it's turned up a notch of what is possible.
Cool. Raj?
Yeah, absolutely, because humans are good at certain things, and we have built over the years or the centuries a kind of logical reasoning capabilities. And if you can, and we can plan and collaborate with users to arrive at answers, to help them achieve things. And ultimately, what is the objective? It's not to create a movie or something like that, right? So I'm talking about practical use cases where this is very helpful with this technology. When you combine them, I don't want to throw the baby with bathwater. There are a lot of good things about the generative AI as the models stand today, and they all can do those things well. But to leave the planning to to such model by itself is not something that I would be comfortable doing it for two reasons. Obviously, hallucination is not a word that I would use lightly. In our industry, for our customers, if you hallucinate, you are in for a lawsuit. You have to close down. So that's not even an option, right? So people have to vet what kind of things that you would say and how you say it. So it's okay to do some search and then get wrong results, but you can't. You're doing deontic reasoning. You are trying to provide answers to people based on applicability conditions and whether or not they can, for example, file a claim, or whether or not they can use a particular medicine and whether it will have a side effect or not. And these are the kinds of questions that we hope to see automated through the human expert or virtual expert that is kind of mimicking the human. For something like that to be offered, you need to have some kind of determinism thrown in, and that cannot come with neural approach alone. And therefore, a combination of these two would be the ideal use of technology. I will call it as augmented intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and where can people learn a little bit more about Openstream?
Sorry?
Where can people learn a little bit more about Openstream?
Well, we are featured in all Gartner reports and Forrester reports all over.
Yeah.
Probably, we are the sole visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for conversational AI platforms over the last 2 years. And of course, they can come to openstream.ai, and our people are waiting to hear from you.
Great. Well, Raj and Magnus, thanks for coming here and speaking with
Thank
me.
you,
Very
Alex, for your
interesting
time.
stuff. Fun to have a great discussion with you guys, and let's keep in touch. And everybody, thank you for watching. We'll be back on the feed relatively soon, and looking forward to seeing you there. All right. That'll do it.
Thanks,
Take
Alex.
care.